Welcome back to a Gaming with Spoons Top 10. Nothing is quite more frustrating than seeing a game you're really looking forward to, getting an amazing trailer from a company, only to have that game pulled out from under you and realize that it's never going to see the light of day. Whether or not this be that the company felt that it wouldn't be a success like they thought it would, whether or not it was a potential buyout from another company, or developers just simply up and left, or the project hit development hell, there are multiple reasons that we don't see these games ever see the light of day. And today we're going to count down the top 10 games that I wish were never canceled. Kicking off this list at number 10 is a game called Crayon. Crayon was an Xbox 360 exclusive game that was going to be developed by Mistwalker and co-developed by Cameo. Now, both of those names should resonate with Japanese RPG fans, as both companies have been prominent for their work with Square Enix titles. Mistwalker was headed by Hironobu Sakaguchi, the father and creator of the Final Fantasy franchise, along with his work with longtime composer Nobuo Uematsu, composing the soundtrack for Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon. Mistwalker was, of course, the company that he created after he left Square Enix. Now, Cameo, on the other hand, is a company that they're hit and miss. They made Drakengard and they made Nier, both really great games, but the combat definitely suffered. So maybe it was a good thing that this game was cancelled, but there's always a chance that Cameo could have come along and done something amazing as well. It's not the first time that we haven't seen a company really turn around, and maybe with Mistwalker kind of helping on production, the high amount team that we had, Crayon could have really become something special. Now, unfortunately, this game was cancelled. This was probably in part due to the popularity of the Xbox 360 in Japan not taking off how Microsoft had initially wanted it, and how it wouldn't necessarily be beneficial considering that was the demographic that they were going for. And let's face it, as amazing as games as Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon were, I don't think that they would have been able to recuperate the cost enough to make Crayon, unfortunately, not. Unfortunately, Crayon just could not happen. Next up on this list is Cameo 2. Cameo 2 was going to be the follow-up to Cameo Elements of Power, the Xbox 360 exclusive that came from Rare. Now, in my personal opinion, this was the last great game from Rare. Cameo Power of Legend was one of the games that I think didn't get a lot of love and didn't get as much love as it deserved. It definitely had a unique feel to it. However, from the looks of it, Cameo 2 was going to take a much darker turn than the original one had initially set up. I imagine or would equate this much to what happened between Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy, following up to the events of Jak 2. It definitely took a very distinct turn. Still, the concepts that Rare had said were going to happen in this game were definitely worth investigating, and seemed to be something that seemed very interesting. Now, I'm going to link the trailer actually down below. You're seeing the concept art here, but I would highly recommend you listen to what Rare had to say about the title in their Rare Replay collection, as it's definitely worth investigating. Next up on this list is Fortress. Now, Fortress was being developed by a company named Grin. Grin was infamously known for their bad adaptation of Bionic Commando, a game that is pretty much universally panned, and it's a game I've never had a desire to actually go in and play. But Grin was given the project Fortress by Square Enix. Now Fortress was supposed to be part of the Evil East Alliance. Evil East Alliance, of course, being the games that were being released in succession to tie into the world of Evil East. Now, apparently there was quite a bit of a development quarrel. Grin wanted more creative freedom. Square Enix didn't want them to necessarily go down the route that they were going, as they wanted to take a lot of elements outside of what Fortress was and make it into something that didn't really fit into the world of Ivalice, and Square Enix ultimately shut down the project because they just didn't like the direction that it was going. Now that is unfortunate, because while I'm glad the game did not come to fruition, because I really would have hated to see the my favorite world in Final Fantasy be completely and utterly destroyed by a subpar game that didn't really appreciate the source material, I do wish that the two developers could have come to some sort of agreement, and that maybe Grin could have gone more along the lines of what it is. From the looks of what it was going to be, it did seem to have a roll and block kind of mechanic, using the sword and kind of shield to block. It looked very exciting. It is unfortunate that we never did get this game. Next up, we've got The Legend of Dragoon 2. Now, unfortunately, we do not have any gameplay of this game whatsoever, even a trailer to go off. This was just kind of rumored to be in development for a long time, and was recently confirmed to have been in development, but it was eventually canned. Now, The Legend of Dragoon was one of the PlayStation's most overlooked video games of all time. It was an absolutely amazing game, and I love the hell out of The Legend of Dragoon. I really would have liked to see The Legend of Dragoon 2, though I don't know where they could have necessarily gone. Maybe they could have gone something further into the future, or something back further into the past, say even the Dragon campaign, talking about the events that kind of took place there. This was a game that I wish would have gone past the initial concept stages, and we really would have gotten a chance to get. The Legend of Dragoon, I definitely feel like was ahead of its time, and this is a game that I think Sony could very well benefit from bringing back from the grave and giving this game another shot. Donkey Kong Country Racing is a game that was initially developed going to be developed for the Nintendo GameCube. It was meant to be the follow-up to Diddy Kong Racing, the awesome Nintendo 64 game that was unique in a lot of different ways, as it was a racing game that had a hub world. It took the elements that we expected from a Rare game and applied them to a racing game. This game was absolutely fun, hard as hell, but fun nonetheless. Donkey Kong Racing was going to be that follow-up, allowing us to be able to ride on the different animals and to race through the jungle, things like that. It looked like it was going to bring a wide array of different Donkey Kong cast to be able to race, but unfortunately, this project never saw the light of day because Microsoft bought out Rare, which is unfortunate because Microsoft and Rare haven't really done anything super great since they've been bought, maybe aside from Cameo Elements of Power. I don't think Microsoft ever gave Rare the creative reins to potentially do what they could have done, which is unfortunate. And since Rare's pretty much been disbanded and they've released the lackluster Sea of Thieves, I don't ever see them really getting their mojo back. Maybe this is a project at some point Nintendo will decide to revive with a new studio and finally give us that Donkey Kong Racing, but unfortunately this is a product that is just going to be lost to history. Next up is Star Wars 1313. Now, Star Wars 1313 was supposed to be a darker take on the Star Wars franchise, as it was supposed to allow us to go in and explore the depths of what was known as Coruscant. The game was being heavily rumored to have a mature kind of rating, and that's what they were going for, a mature Star Wars story. It was heavily rumored, or maybe it was confirmed at some point, I'm not 100% sure, that Boba Fett was going to be the main character and that we were going to explore the depths of Coruscant with him and kind of see how he got his beginnings. Unfortunately, during the acquisition of the Disney buy-off, Disney shut down LucasArts, and unfortunately this game came with it. Maybe we should have seen the writing on the wall about how Disney was going to treat the Star Wars franchise when they shut down LucasArts. But that being said, we did get sort of a revival of this idea through Visceral Games' Star Wars game that they were working on, helmed by Amy Hennig. Unfortunately, that game is no longer coming, as that has been cancelled as well, due to EA wanting to push more of a games as a service business type with their games, and that is unfortunate. This was supposed to be an Uncharted style Star Wars game, and it looked absolutely incredible. I would have liked to see a Star Wars game built in the vein of that and really see what these two teams, with Visceral's game and the people working on Star Wars 1313, could have done. Next up on the list is Beyond Good and Evil 2, and before anybody says anything, I'm not talking about the game that Ubisoft had recently announced. I'm talking about the PlayStation 3 game that was supposed to be the initial follow-up to the PlayStation 2 title, Beyond Good and Evil. Not much was known about this game other than that it would feature Paige and Jade, and we did get some initial concept footage that definitely looked really interesting. It's unfortunate that we're not going to be able to see this game in its full light or really ever have an understanding of what is going on, as it does seem that this is setting up a prequel at this point, and who knows, maybe if this new Beyond Good and Evil game does well, we may be able to see this project revived. But at this point, Beyond Good and Evil is just a game we are never going to get. Silent Hills from Konami has to be one of the most infamous cancelled games of all time. During Gamescom 2014, we all know that Hideo Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, and Norman Reedus all came together to work on what was supposed to be the revival of Silent Hills, releasing the amazing, well-received PT demo upon the PlayStation Store. The world was taken by surprise when this game was revealed to be that of Silent Hills. Now, this game, as I said, was supposed to be a revival of sorts of the original franchise, and it's unfortunate that this game never came to light. Following off the quarrel between Kojima and Konami, the game was eventually cancelled later on that year, and it's a shame because this game definitely looked really interesting. Now, one thing I will say about Silent Hill is its legacy still lives on, or Silent Hill's legacy still lives on, as the PT demo has really gone in to spawn a lot of survival horror elements. A lot of indie games are kind of copying what PT had initially set up, which is pretty exciting in of itself, and even Resident Evil seemed to kind of carry on that route, though Capcom did initially say that they had that idea before PT came along, which would make sense, it really would, but PT kind of helped pave the way and go, wow, look at how well this is being received, and they felt more confident releasing Resident Evil 7. So, despite it being cancelled, something good at least did come out of it, as it has kind of sparked an interest in the indie scene of horror games, and really kind of helped a lot of developers go about maybe returning some of these games to their survival horror roots. Next up is a game that I wish to this day would still come out, and this is Chronoblade. Chronoblade was nothing more than just a trademark from Square Enix, an initial concept that was really released, never even came out, unfortunately, because Square Enix only registered that trademark. Now, from what we knew about Chronoblade, obviously this would of course be the sequel to Chrono Cross. We're going to obviously get this as the third game, and we didn't really know anything about it other than the initial trademark. Unfortunately, a lot of the members who worked on Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger had kind of moved on to different projects in Square, some of them working on Final Fantasy XI, others leaving the company to go pursue Monolith Software, while others went on to be freelancers. This series just never picked up the momentum, unfortunately, and Square Enix held on to the trademark until 2012, where that trademark expired. Which is unfortunate, because I feel like the Chrono series could have gone on, and we could have gotten yet another awesome story set in this universe. Where they could have taken it, who's to say? We can only speculate at this point, but this is one game that I really hope that Square Enix comes through and says, yes, we are making that third sequel, that third game in the franchise. So maybe with Square Enix taking an interest in some of their older IPs, this is one that they will look at, but at the same time, I feel this is a project that Square Enix doesn't want to get a hold of, doesn't want to focus on, because they know how loved both of these games are. And last up on this list is Scalebound. Nothing came as a more of a shock when Microsoft, just out of the blue at the beginning of last year, announced that Scalebound would be cancelled. The game being worked on by Platinum Games. This game looked to be the Xbox One exclusive that would put Microsoft on the spot. I, for one, took a look at this game and go, wow, this is going to be the game that makes me go out to buy an Xbox One. The game looked that impressive. Platinum Games also has a very reliable track record when making great games. Unfortunately, Scalebound hit many delays. Platinum Games saying they definitely struggled with trying to get the game to work. There was a lot coming out that there were a lot of frame rate drops, just overall problems with the game, and they couldn't get it working on the Xbox One. It definitely seemed like it was a project that was a bit more than what they could bite off and chew. Now, perhaps Platinum Games did have some fault in this as well, but I feel like also Microsoft wasn't there cracking the whip on them to get this done and saying, you know, look, maybe do this instead. And it seems like this game suffered from a lot of communication between both parties, though that's just speculation on my part. Now, one thing I do want to bring up and talk about is a potential revival of this project. And I feel like this would be something that Microsoft needs to look at going into next generation. Scalebound is definitely one of those games that I could see making a comeback with a different studio. And there's one particular studio that I want to focus on that I think could handle this project and do it very well. And this is Ninja Theory. Ninja Theory is known, or most notably known right now, for their work on Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. That was one of their huge games that they had released last year. But Ninja Theory is no amateur to action-based games. They created Heavenly Sword on the PlayStation 3, followed that up with Enslaved: Odyssey to the West, one of the most underrated Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games to have ever been created, and worked on the Devil May Cry DMC remake. Now, I know everybody hates that game, but taking the combat, how well refined the combat was and how well that worked, despite the overall story, despite it being set in the Devil May Cry universe, Ninja Theory definitely proved that they could handle that particular type of combat. And I really think giving Ninja Theory that game, they could make something amazing at this point, as I do feel like Ninja Theory tends to be a developer that is very independent, as they've seen with their work on Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice and how focused that they were on that game. So that's just been my top 10 list of games that have been canceled. But I want to hear down below, what games were canceled that you wanted to see released that never were. Let me know what games down below that may not have been on this list that definitely deserve to come out as well. You guys have been watching Gaming with Spoons. Be sure to hit subscribe there for me to keep up to date with all of my content. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Links are going to be down below in that description box, and most importantly, stay happy, be happy, game happy. Spoons is checking out.